As the coronavirus rate of infection shows signs of slowing down, governors band together to plan how and when communities can start to open up again.
And we begin a new segment, Questions in Quarantine. Tonight, a look at antibody tests for the coronavirus.
And former President Obama appeals to younger voters as he endorses Joe Biden for president.
Live from USC, you're watching Annenberg TV News.
Because you have practiced physical distancing, the stay-at-home orders, you have bent the curve in the state of California. The models have changed because of your behavior.
The world is quickly approaching 2 million confirmed cases of coronavirus. Good evening. I'm Nathan Hyun, reporting from Seattle.
I'm Genevieve Glass, reporting from West Hollywood. Despite the rise in cases, there are early signs that things are starting to improve. Let's take a look at the latest numbers.
According to Johns Hopkins University, COVID-19 has infected nearly 2 million people and killed over 125,000 as of today. While the number of confirmed cases continues to rise, the rate of new cases has shown promising signs of slowing down in the United States. A week ago, the number of new cases was increasing by 8.8%. Now, the rate is half of that. President Trump spoke today about measures the United States will take moving forward concerning coronavirus, including halting funding for the World Health Organization.
Today, I'm instructing my administration to halt funding of the World Health Organization while a review is conducted to assess the World Health Organization's role in severely mismanaging and covering up the spread of the coronavirus.
Governors from 9 states announced the formation of a multi-state plan to reopen parts of the economy safely. California's governor emphasized the important role local governments have in this process.
Because you have practiced physical distancing, the stay-at-home orders, you have bent the curve in the state of California. The models have changed because of your behavior. And that puts us in a position to be able to socialize, again, to make public these private conversations we've been having about this next phase. But number two, we do so soberly, because today we had a record number of deaths that we are reporting. 758 individual stories, families, and lives torn apart. 71 individuals that lost their lives.
Here are the 6 goals outlined by Governor Newsom. The ability to expand tracing and contact tracing to support people exposed to the virus. A better process for preventing infections among the elderly and those with underlying conditions. Assurances that hospitals can handle a surge in patients. Partnerships with academics to develop treatments. Assurance that businesses, schools, and child care facilities can safely reopen while maintaining social distancing. And finally, development of a plan to quickly reinstitute measures like stay-at-home orders if needed after restrictions are softened. California's stay-at-home order is scheduled to remain in place until at least May 15th.
In Los Angeles County, COVID-19 has infected over 10,000 people and caused 360 deaths.
I do want to remind everyone that we're not yet on the other side of this pandemic. We're going to need to keep up our efforts to avoid a surge in cases that will overwhelm our hospitals. We don't want to lose ground. We need to stay home, we need to physically distance, and we need to self-isolate and self-quarantine. So we're planning for our recovery, and we need to have a strategy to make sure that we don't see a steep acceleration that will overwhelm our county.
Welcome to a new segment, Questions in Quarantine. I'm Cheshire. Now, you probably know that there have been a shortage of tests for COVID-19. You may have also heard that antibody tests are coming soon, so great, problem solved, right? Well, not so fast. See, antibody tests are a different kind of tests and they have a different purpose. Today on Questions in Quarantine, we ask, what are antibody tests and why are they important? Broadly, there are 2 kinds of tests doctors can do for the virus: diagnostic tests and antibody tests. Diagnostic testing is what you probably picture when you think about coronavirus testing. You might have also heard this called a PCR test. This is the test doctors use to figure out if someone is infected with the coronavirus right now. In this test, the doctor takes a sample, usually a nose or throat swab, and sends it to a lab to see if the virus itself is present in the patient. It's a good way to see who should self-quarantine and anticipate who's going to need what treatment. Antibody testing is a different category of test. In antibody tests, doctors take a blood sample and test for proteins in the immune system produced when fighting the virus, antibodies. It doesn't test for the virus itself. If antibodies are present in a seemingly healthy person, it means they have been exposed and are either asymptomatic or no longer infected. It also means that they may have some immunity to the virus, although doctors don't yet know how strong that immunity is or how long it will last. So why are they even useful? Well, I'll let Dr. Cannon of the Keck Medical Center explain.
The value of that is that if, for example, imagine you were a family of four, and you knew that your oldest son had previously been infected and had antibodies. Well, in my family, that would mean that he would now be the person who would be going to the grocery store every day. So that the low amount of risk that people who haven't been infected expose them to every time they leave the house could now be taken care of by having the antibody positive member of the house going out.
So there you go. Diagnostic tests tell us if the virus is currently in the patient, while antibody tests look for antibodies, or proof that the virus was in the patient in the past and the body tried to fight it off. They may also show that the patient has some form of immunity to the virus, but we don't know how much or how long it lasts yet. That's it for today's Questions in Quarantine. Back to you guys.
Experimental clinical trials are underway in LA to detect whether people have antibodies that could render them immune to COVID-19. But according to USC's Chief Health Officer, Sarah Van Orman, the case for antibody testing isn't as clear as it might seem.
We're getting lots of questions and requests to do antibody testing. We're in regular contact with many people nationally, locally. And right now, what we know about antibody testing is that we don't know enough to know to make a good recommendation on it.
President Trump says the medicine hydroxychloroquine, otherwise known as Plaquenil, may be a game changer for those suffering from COVID-19. He has urged the American public to have blind faith in this drug, asking, "What do you have to lose?" Well, a lot, according to some of the people I've spoken to. Famisha Williams is a nurse in Orlando, Florida, who has the autoimmune disease lupus.
I try to refill that through my 90-day supply refill pharmacy. They're actually on back order. They don't know when they're going to get it. So yesterday they had me call around to all my local pharmacies. After I called around to about 8 pharmacies, I actually found one, but they didn't have a 90-day supply. They only had a 30-day supply. So that's a little bit scary to me as a healthcare provider who takes this medication, is maintained on it. I'm fully functioning with it. If I wasn't taking this medication, I would not be able to go to work on a daily basis.
It can even pose a challenge for pharmacists.
I called 3 pharmacists that I know who are working on the floor. What they're saying is that it's very hard for them to keep up the stock of the medication. And that just, to me, makes no sense at all.
Dr. Anna Valdez is a registered nurse with over 28 years of experience in clinical practice and nursing education. She also has lupus and has been taking Plaquenil for 15 years.
I wasn't able to get my medicine for a stretch. I had to rely upon kind people to share their hydroxychloroquine or medicine that they no longer needed with me in order to get through this stretch. If I were to run out and I can't get access to it, I'm likely to have lupus flares, which means that my body, my immune system will attack itself. And it can attack any tissue or cells within my body, including my blood, my heart, my lungs, my kidneys.
The one thing that we do know in lots and lots of studies is that hydroxychloroquine helps lupus patients keep their kidneys working well. If they stop taking their medication, the worst thing that can happen with lupus is renal failure, where the kidneys fail.
There's not enough testing to know whether this drug is safe for patients with COVID-19.
So I support the use of hydroxychloroquine in patients who have COVID-19 who are very ill, who are in the hospital, and there is a risk-benefit ratio that it is worth giving them a medicine that could be potentially harmful.
Patients with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis depend on hydroxychloroquine and are concerned about the high demand for a drug they rely on.
The LA Sheriff's Department said it has reduced the county jail population by 25% to slow the spread of COVID-19 among inmates and employees. A USC social work professor explained why he supports the move.
A lot of times people erroneously think when we let people out of jail that we're letting people convicted go. In fact, we're letting people who've never actually been tried, who are only in jail because they couldn't afford cash bail. Prisons are a little bit different because those are people who we've found guilty and we're trying to have them serve out a sentence. And there's some calculation between trying to figure out how do you keep the jail from having an outbreak, but how do you also not release people who you know are positive into communities where there may not be the infrastructure or support to keep it from spreading in the community.
Starting today, qualifying LA residents can receive up to $1,500 for emergency financial assistance. To qualify, residents must have demonstrated financial hardship caused by the COVID-19 pandemic.
I started at 8:30 and the site was just crashing. I gave up after a while. I started again and I got through and finally filled it out. From 8:30 to, I don't know, about 11, I guess I was refreshing the site and it was crashing. The form wasn't long and it was really easy once I got in.
The mayor having initiated it, it's, through the mayor's fund, it's not taxpayer funded. I think it's nice. I don't think it's anywhere near enough. With the Angelino card, that at least covers some of my rent if the government is still stalling with the payment. So, and I don't expect it to come anytime soon. And even, the people who I spoke with at unemployment, they were like, with a stroke of luck, you might get it soon. We have no federal response. It's states for themselves.
Qualifying applicants must live in the city of Los Angeles and have had income below the state's poverty line prior to the county's stay-at-home order on March 19th. They must have also faced financial hardship due to reduced work hours and had their incomes reduced by at least 50%.
Retail makes up nearly 6% of the entire U.S. economy, yet it's an industry that may not recover from the coronavirus pandemic. We spoke to a wealth analyst to find out why.
Of the 11 sectors out there, the ones that are probably most likely the most depressed today and more likely over the short term is going to be the retail sector, although you'll see some bounce backs intermittently. Overall, they've been hit probably the worst because you and I, we're not out spending. We're too nervous. Maybe I've lost my job. I'm not buying the way I used to. So the retail sector, unless it's combined with the tech sector like an Amazon, they're getting slammed.
Hey everyone, Erin Falstrup here, political anchor coming to you from near campus at Adams in Vermont. So former President Barack Obama endorsed candidate Joe Biden in a video message this morning.
Honesty and humility, empathy and grace. That kind of leadership doesn't just belong in our state capitals and mayor's offices. It belongs in the White House. And that's why I'm so proud to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States.
This endorsement follows many others, including from former candidate Bernie Sanders. Yet the reaction from Sanders supporters has been mixed.
Personally, I will not be voting for Joe Biden. I also will not be voting for Donald Trump, don't get me wrong. And I'm going to be voting. The problem is just like I was talking before, we're always promised about incremental change and the lesser of two evils mantra. But to quote Ralph Nader, if you always choose between the lesser of two evils, you're always going to choose evil and you're always going to end up with less.
Now, although some Bernie supporters say they will either not vote for Biden or not vote at all, some political experts argue this is basically the same as voting for Trump.
The problem is if you don't vote, that in fact is a vote for the incumbent. I mean, the net effect of not casting a vote for Joe Biden and sitting this one out, if you will, is in fact helping the incumbent stay in office. I think more than ever, this is going to be a campaign about, are you a supporter for Trump or are you not?
Experts add that Sanders supporters should still vote this November because there are other candidates running for state office in Congress who can help promote more progressive policies like those supported by the Vermont senator. Back to you guys.
I'm Sylvie Sparks reporting from La Quinta, California. Today, USC had its most important game of the year. That's right, USC Athletics teamed up with the American Red Cross to host a blood drive in the Galen Center. The goal of the drive is to help maintain a steady blood supply during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Red Cross chose the Galen Center because it is large enough to accommodate for social distancing. There were 130 spots available, and all of them filled up days before today's event. One of USC's associate athletic directors says he's very happy with how the Trojan family is stepping up.
We felt it was very necessary to help out, to do our part, and the USC community has stepped up. I mean, the fight-on spirit that everyone's exhibiting right now is phenomenal. People signed up very quickly. We filled our space. It's doing very good for us. It's very good for the community. Red Cross is getting what they need, and we're out here, and people, our donors, are saving lives.
Athletic Director Mike Bone called the event the most important game of the year. Donors received t-shirts for participating today, just like they would at some sporting events. Now let's toss it to Trevor Denton, who can tell us more about what's going on in collegiate athletics.
Thank you, Sylvie. I'm Trevor Denton reporting from Los Angeles. Right now, no one knows when college sports will come back, and that uncertainty has already led to one team closing its doors. Today, the University of Cincinnati announced that it would be shutting down its men's soccer program after 40-plus seasons. Here's how Pat Brennan of the Cincinnati Enquirer reacted to the news on Twitter. He said he can't help but see this decision in the context of revenues lost and uncertainty around the college football season. Few college sports actually turn a profit. Football does, so if the season were delayed or canceled, the result could be devastating for athletic departments. Speaking of devastated, some Bearcats players took to Twitter to react to the news that their team was canceled. Freshman goalkeeper Tyler Glassnap said it felt like an absolute kick in the teeth, but he's grateful for the relationships he's made at Cincinnati and is now looking forwards. Annenberg Media reached out to USC Athletics and asked if they had any plans to discontinue specific sports like Cincinnati did. They said that hasn't been discussed and there are no plans to at this time. That's all the time we have for sports.
USC will be receiving funds under the CARES Act to provide emergency financial aid grants to students for COVID-19 related expenses. The CARES Act was passed by the government to provide Americans coronavirus aid, relief, and economic security.
It's hard trying to work and trying to do all these things and pay for my bills. So definitely I'm going to apply for it and see if maybe I'm eligible. I feel like, especially right now, it's been very difficult financially, not just for myself, but I can imagine for everybody else. So I think this care package or this extra financial aid is really going to relieve a lot of stress. For me personally, I get a lot of anxiety when I'm back home and I see my mom stressed out. So this is definitely going to help me kind of just relax and focus more on my studies.
Under the CARES Act, USC students can receive up to $3,000. To get the money, students can complete an application on their financial aid page that identifies common costs that are eligible for emergency grant funding. The money is available for both undergraduate and graduate students.
Thank you for watching. We will continue to post newscasts right here on the Annenberg Media YouTube channel.
And for more coverage on COVID-19, head to uscannenbergmedia.com. Good night.